What if it's not your fault? What if your fatigue and exhaustion and your struggle to connect with your friends, to finish the book or pick up the guitar, what if it's not your fault? Modern life is full of technology that promise to make our lives easier and give us more free time, and yet we are more depleted than ever. This is what I call the ancestral paradox, a collision between ancient biology and modern life. And at its center is your gut. By understanding the gut-brain connection, we can begin to restore balance. I love the gut. I don't mean what comes across when you're in an all-inclusive vacation. I mean the gut, that tube that runs from your gums to your bum. Now, my fascination started with parasites. During my master's, I learned about all the ways that parasites can manipulate their host behavior to help complete the parasite life cycle. And I was captivated by this idea of biology silently steering behavior. When I moved on to a PhD in gastrointestinal science, my research took an unexpected turn. I studied how parasites can be therapeutic. So for thousands and thousands of years, our immune systems co-evolved with roundworms and tapeworms and flatworms. And many of them ended up in our gut, where they absorbed nutrients and they found clever ways to hide from the host's immune system. And some even learned how to produce molecules that could suppress the host's immune response against them. Now, public health measures like sanitation are wonderful things. They've saved millions of lives, but they have come with a cost. And that is a loss of environmental microbes like parasites that once trained and calibrated our immune systems. And that loss may explain why inflammatory bowel diseases are so much more high in prevalence in industrialized countries. In fact, clinical trials are even looking to see if giving people live parasites might help treat or manage their disease. Now, not to worry, I am not here to advocate for the return of the giant beef tapeworm. But the lengths that some people will go to for relief is no joke. So I heard about these stories during my PhD. A man so desperate for relief from his immune-mediated allergies that he flew to Africa, walked barefoot through latrines to try and contract a hookworm parasite. Or people so desperate for relief from their colitis, inflammation of the colon, that they did a at-home enema with a blender and a healthy family member's feces. And you might think that that's extreme, but these kinds of diseases, it's not just about the suffering in the gut. It's about the anxiety and the depression and the cognitive fog that accompany them. And I used to think, well, of course you're anxious and depressed. You have a chronic disease that is really impairing the quality of your life. But then I learned it's not just psychological. It's not just the psychological burden of disease. It's also biological. If you give a rodent gut inflammation, that animal's behavior will start to change. It will become less curious, less exploring. It'll spend less time with its rodent friends. And it will have deficits in learning and memory. It's become less motivated to perform effortful tasks. The same thing happens to people. Gut inflammation signals the brain, and it shifts mood and alters focus, even decision-making. And once I saw that link, how gut inflammation can affect the brain, I became obsessed. I moved on to 2 fellowships in neuroscience to try and understand how is the gut communicating with the brain. And one way is through the immune system. Peripheral inflammation signals to the brain to produce neuroinflammation, and this drives changes in behavior. Sickness behaviors, fatigue and lethargy, irritability and withdrawal, like from friends and from the activities you enjoy. And these responses make sense. To be sick is to be vulnerable. So your body coaxes you to isolate and protect yourself. And to be sick is to have your immune system battling a virus or some bacteria. And that's, energetically speaking, expensive. And so your body coaxes you to rest and recuperate. And then when your immune system wins the war and the inflammation subsides, so too do those sickness behaviors. But what if they don't switch off? What if the inflammation doesn't switch off? Gut diseases and disorders, like inflammatory bowel disease and irritable bowel syndrome, are often chronic. And so these sickness behaviors morph into anxiety and depression and brain fog. And you don't need a diagnosed gut disease for this to affect you. All it takes is modern stress. The stress response isn't just an on-off switch. It's a set of flexible survival programs that are finely tuned to meet a challenge. And so the intensity and the duration and the kind of stress influences the level of cortisol, the level of adrenaline, the brain regions that are involved, and the kind of behaviors that emerge. So for example, if you imagine that you are in a dark alley and you hear footsteps, you have a rush of adrenaline, you have activation of your brain's alarm system, the amygdala, and you have your classic behaviors of fight, flight, or freeze. On the other hand, a psychological stressor, like an exam or a deadline, has a slow, steady increase in cortisol that helps keep you focused and attending to the problem at hand. It activates regions of your brain involved in planning. Cortisol connects every form of stress, and we feel it in our guts. Your gut is a hub where 3 powerful networks converge: immune cells, microbes, and neurons. In fact, scientists call your gut the second brain because it has more neurons than your spinal cord, more than half your body's dopamine, more than 90% of your body's serotonin. And inside the gut, we have the most dense population of bacteria on the planet. This is the gut microbiome. Trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Combined, they make up 99% of the genetic material in your body. And they live in this gorgeous, thick, sticky layer of mucus that your body produces for them. And your gut doesn't just digest, it also defends. 70% of your body's immune cells are in the gut. And the cells that line the gut, they absorb nutrients, but they also tightly link with their neighbor to make sure that nothing bad can slip through. And cortisol nudges those cells apart. We don't know why, but one theory is that it's because in our ancestral past, it was so full of gut pathogens that allowing immune cells to have a quick peek through the gates of the gut and scan for invaders anytime a stress response was mounted would be a great way to make sure the immune response could get a leg up on any invading pathogen. But modern life has changed the game. We have terrible news cycles and climate anxiety and looming deadlines that never cease. Your psychological stress response is switched on by all the things that you cannot control. And social stress is higher than ever. Social pain, like rejection and humiliation, they activate the same regions in the brain as physical pain. Because to our ancestors, being excluded from the tribe, that was a threat to survival. Now, positive social interactions, these help buffer against that kind of stress response with endorphins and oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin. But online connection doesn't offer us the same benefits. If anything, it can make it worse. I mean, social media is just constantly reminding us that we're not thin enough, rich enough, or successful enough. And so we feel that envy and greed and loneliness and self-doubt. Comparison isn't just a thief of joy, it is a crowbar prying open the gates to the gut. And so little bits of food particles and microbes slip through the gates of the gut, and they cause inflammation. And even if it's low-grade inflammation, your brain responds. It switches from a thinking mode to a coping mode, from planning and self-control to quick rewards and comfort and habits. And in those moments of high stress, we make decisions, and often those decisions with the things we have access to in modern life are not necessarily helpful. Often they're harmful to your gut. And so this cycle continues of poor gut health, poor brain health, poor mental health, poor decisions, and it never seems to end. You are not failing at modern life. Modern life is overwhelming your biology, but your biology gives you a way back. Stress leaves its fingerprints on the gut, but that's where we can begin healing. And the gut microbiome offers a really powerful lever that we can influence. And one of the ways we can do that is with food. So when fatigue and brain fog, they set in, many of us carry the weight of shame for not having the motivation to exercise or socialize or pursue our hobbies. And maybe we tell ourselves, well, this is just parenthood, or this is just middle age. Or maybe we ask ourselves, is this perimenopause? These symptoms are messages, not milestones, and they come from our gut. So let's take a look at the gut and what makes a healthy gut microbiome. Between two ecosystems, a single crop field or a rainforest, what ecosystem is more resilient? It's the rainforest. It's stable, it's adaptable, it's flexible, just like your microbiome. By around age 3, you establish a core microbiome. This is like the old growth trees in your forest. And this microbiome performs essential functions like digestion, training the immune system, and producing vitamins. Surrounding that is your peripheral microbiome, and it helps support your forest like the undergrowth of a forest. And it's much more adaptable to change depending on stress and diet, lifestyle, and environment. And so in order to have sort of a healthy gut microbiome, scientists say it's not just like one perfect microbiome exists, but rather the most important thing is a feature of this microbiome, and that is diversity. How do you get a diverse microbiome? By feeding it diverse foods. This is one thing modern life has given us in spades. We have so many selections of fruits and vegetables and nuts, and when I stand in front of a yogurt aisle, I am just overwhelmed by the selection that exists there. So aim to try and eat as many different colors as you can. And fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut and kombucha, not only do they contain beneficial bacteria, but they contain the food that that bacteria needs to be able to establish in your gut and all of the good compounds that bacteria produce. And these beneficial bacteria, they settle into the mucus layer. This is like the forest floor. And they actually help stimulate mucus production by cells that line your gut. And that's really important because that mucus layer protects your gut from invaders and from digestive juices. And what is the fertilizer that keeps this forest thriving? It's fiber, complex carbohydrates, resistant starches, all that good stuff in fruits and vegetables, fiber. And you can't digest fiber, but your microbes can. They ferment it into short-chain fatty acids, and many of these have an incredible wealth of benefits that scientists are just learning about now. But one of them, called butyrate, is an energy source that helps give those cells that line your gut, that make the gut barrier, the energy they need to maintain a tight gut barrier. As well, these short-chain fatty acids can improve metabolism and calm the immune system. They can even cross into the blood-brain barrier and improve memory and learning and reduce neuroinflammation. In the last century, fiber intake in industrialized countries has collapsed by 85%. Your grandparents ate 5 to 10 times as much fiber as you do today. The good news is that change can come quickly. Clinical trials have shown that high fiber interventions can increase microbial diversity and increase short-chain fatty acid production within just 1 to 2 weeks. And so I encourage you to run your own high fiber intervention, aiming for 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. You'll feel your inner forest transform. Your struggle to find balance, it's not your fault. It's the ancestral paradox, ancient biology trying to survive in a modern world. And when we understand the gut-brain axis, how it's shaped by our ancient biology and how it's shaped by modern stress, we can stop blaming ourselves and start making decisions from a place of clarity and not coping. When we nourish our inner forest, we restore balance to our gut and our brain and our lives. Because when we work with our biology, we don't just survive modern life, we thrive in it. Thank you.